Okay, what is good? What is good? Man, people, people, people. Clout kills. Clout absolutely kills. And I don't think that's a metaphor, to be honest with you. That is not an exaggeration, as we can obviously see now. That's the headline. That is the headline that clout kills. It killed Charlie Kirk live on stage in front of the crowd because somebody decided that going viral or having their own personal vendettas mattered more than life itself. Now, I know what's pretty much going to be coming from this discussion. People are going to want to say a whole bunch of stuff, do a whole bunch of goalpost moving. They are going to spin narratives. They're going to reach for history. They're going to compare apples to oranges, maybe even drag George Floyd's name into this. That's fine. That's something you're going to move into. But let's be clear from the start. This is not about trying to win the oppression Olympics. This is about clout. This is about debate and how it's died and how people can only speculate over it, how people have actually replaced it. So before I get into it, before I get myself warmed up, let's get started. Welcome to the show.
Tick loud in the chamber, pressure gets colder. Resla walks in, truth ride in his shoulder. Here for the shift, tear the mask off pretenders. Beat drop. He's a fucking monster. Cuts through the noise, pulls the lies in the daylight. Every move calculated, every word's a fist fight. Building new codes, stacking bricks for the future. Turning midlife to gold, cut the chains like a suture. Keeps time as a weapon, each tick is a death note. Lights up the skyline, watch the whole city take note. Not chasing the fame, here to freeze what's molten. Break open the silence, keep the truth ice cold. There's no clock to punch in. He's the one who dictates every second's a fuse. Watch the skyline detonate.
All right, y'all. Let's get into this because this was a conversation I really didn't even want to get into for some time. I watched like everybody else. I've seen the TikToks. I have seen people's postings on Facebook. I have seen it on YouTube. I have seen some very limited, but some that happen all over these areas of Twitch. And you know me, I'm gonna carry it in a little bit of a different direction because I've heard everybody say their piece. Pretty much everybody running with this as the next thing since sliced bread since they had last time they ever had anything to talk about, right? But what I see from all of this is that this has gone from debate to blood sport. To be honest with you, there used to be a time. There used to be a time when debate meant something. You know, you stood on the stage, you made your case, and somebody came back with their own counters, their own rebuttals. It was tense, it was heated, and they were still dialogue at the end of the day. The worst thing that can actually happen was that you got booed, you got roasted, maybe even walked away with a bit, just a little bit of embarrassment. But now that's not enough at all. Debate isn't dialogue anymore. It's really just a form of blood sport, all in all. Just really getting into it. And it's not let me prove my point. It's let me humiliate you. Let me bury you. Let me destroy you. And the audience, well, they're not clapping for the best arguments. They are clapping for who can deliver the best knockout. They want the escalation. They want the spectacle. They want someone's career to be on the line, somebody's dignity, somebody's life to be on the line. And when when we have that kind of culture, folks, words don't end with words anymore. Words end with weapons. Opinions just don't get challenged anymore. Instead, they get targeted. And that's what we have to really draw this line when we see what happened to Charlie Kirk. He wasn't booed. He wasn't canceled. He was protested. In fact, he wasn't even protested, to be honest with you. He was assassinated. A man climbed into the roof with a rifle. We know who that guy is now. Not because he wanted to debate, but because he wanted to end any other form of debate that could be taking place. And that's where human behavior has collapsed, if you ask me. We do not live in a world of agree to disagree anymore. It seems like we live in a world of disagree and die. And if that's the society that we're heading towards, if that is the thing that we have now learned to accept, then we can absolutely just say right now that this is going to be the death of debate. There's no reason to debate anymore because it's just not worth it. Everybody should just keep their heads down. And the only question I have to ask is it already here? Hurricane, what's going on here? What's going on, Ron? Appreciate you stopping by. I wasn't really sure I even wanted to talk about this, but since I told somebody I would, I said I was just going to give whatever my thoughts were. Just real quick. I can't even say how long I'm really going to be on this. Because everybody's already had their fill, I'm pretty sure, over the weekend, if they're not still doing it. I think the shooter's real motive, impact, it wasn't justified. Let's strip this down just a little bit. The shooter wasn't a revolutionary. Let's just debunk some of that for some of the things that you guys I've heard. You guys have said and I've heard that over the internet. He wasn't some soldier in a movement. He wasn't fighting oppression. Hell, he wasn't even trying to right a wrong. He's some 22-year-old nobody who thought that the only way that he could matter was to pull a trigger. To me, that's not justice. To me, that is desperation. Because if you really look at the details, you'll see it wasn't about silencing Charlie Kirk's voice. It was about amplifying his own. He wasn't important enough to really have his own. The rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was a stage. The bullet casings weren't just evidence, folks. That was his content. Like captions on emergency. That's not behavior of a man fighting for justice, if you ask me. That's the behavior of a man that is starving for attention. And here's the ugly truth. When you feel invisible long enough, that impact becomes more important than, let's just be honest, your insolence. This wasn't about righting a wrong. Let me say that again. This was not about justice or equality or change. This was all about, I got my 5 minutes. I got myself seen. It wasn't about creating a moment big enough to make his name. It wasn't even that. Because if that was the case, he wouldn't have bothered to try to even run away and be so far away on a damn rooftop. Because not for nothing, what we see right now and what he did, that is the whole thing that we're leading towards when it comes to this culture of clout. This is what the culture of clout does. It convinces people that even death their own or someone else's is better than being forgotten. And that's why Charlie Kirk isn't just a victim here. He's the evidence of how far the sickness is spreading. The shooter didn't just want to kill a man. He wanted to trend. And I think that's one of the scariest parts of all for people. And I'm trying to do this whole thing that I've seen all over the internet because I'm trying to anticipate the narratives that I've seen out there, the talking points of narratives and the bringing up of shit that just has no business being brought up. Now, I know this is not an open panel. And I already know what's coming because I've already heard it in so many different areas. People are going to be shifting the goalpost because I've already seen it. People are going to be shifting goalposts. They are going to drag shit out of history. They're going to drop hashtags and they are going to turn this into some form of victim Olympics. Let me just stop you right there. And let me just address the narratives that I've already seen that people put on the table. Because this is not the same thing as George Floyd. Let me say that again. This is not the same thing as George Floyd. No, it is not. Floyd was killed by the state under the knee of a cop abusing authority. That state power, that systemic force. Charlie Kirk was assassinated by one lone 22-year-old chasing clout with a motherfucking rifle. Totally different dynamics, folks. Both tragic. But you can't flatten them into the same story just because they both went viral. That's sloppy and dishonest. I can already people say, well, nobody cares when it's us, because I've heard that on the inline. I've heard that online. Come on. Floyd's, you cannot say nobody cares when it's us. Floyd's death sparked one of the largest protests in modern history. And I don't mean that just for the US, it was global. You're basically making my point. And if he was hit from somebody from a freaking right from far away, he was assassinated. You don't need to be a political figure in order to get assassinated. I hope you know that. You don't need to be a political figure in order to be assassinated. I hope you understand that. You don't need to be someone of huge notoriety to be executed. Let's get it straight. Like I said, I've already heard the people talking about nobody cares when it comes to other black people. And I'm like, yo, come on now. I'm going to put this out there for the whole point. People talk about Floyd. This whole thing went global. People were talking about it in different countries. And I'm not just talking about Western countries. It was in multiple different countries. As far as freaking South Korea, people were talking about it. His name hit the streets worldwide. Murals were put up worldwide. Entire industries changed their message overnight when it came to George Floyd. Now, we can't say how it's going to turn over because it's just been over the span of a weekend, right? But try to compare that to Kirk. He's not getting murals in Paris. He's not getting political blame games so far. So let's not act like one tragedy was ignored while the other one is being immortalized. That's a very selective memory. And we need to be very much I'm very much aware of that. That's human bias. It's cognitive bias. I hear the other people that turn around and say, well, this shows the same systematic hate that we've been facing for centuries. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. This wasn't systematic. This wasn't the government or the police. This was one isolated individual trying to make himself matter. He didn't represent the state or a structure or centuries of long institutions. He represented desperation. And desperation isn't systematic, it's individual. I've heard other people talking about, say, black people get killed for less all the time. And to me, that's deflection compared to what's the actual matter of being speaked about. Tragedies are not in competition. Let me say that again. Tragedies are not in competition. Saying we've got killed for less does not erase what happened here. It just proves that violence has no loyalty to race or politics. And hopefully you guys can understand that. Violence adapts. Black, white, rich, poor. If the culture keeps rewarding blood with attention, then everybody is on the motherfucking menu. I've heard this one too. If this was a black speaker, people would blame the victim. Not true. Because history says otherwise. Look at MLK, Malcolm X, Nipsey Hussle. They were targeted, killed, and immortalized. The conversation wasn't, well, they had it coming. The conversation was, how could this have happened? Kirk is being framed the same way. Whatever and however you want to think of him, his death is being treated as a symbol, not a punchline. And I've also heard people say things like, you see, speech has consequences. And to me, I understand that, but it's also one of the weakest things to say of all the things that I've heard. If your justification for murder is speech has consequences, then what you're really saying is we couldn't beat him with words, so we needed bullets. That's not justice, ladies and gentlemen. That's admitting defeat. That is literally weakness dressed up as wisdom. Sorry if you don't like that, but that's not my problem. That's not my pill to swallow. That is yours. So if you're going to move the goalposts in this discussion about this guy, just know I've already seen how people behave when it comes to it. I've seen the playbook. I've already been calling it out before you ran it. These narratives sound strong on Twitter, perhaps. But when you really break them down, they collapse under their own weight. Because the truth is simple. This was not about race or the systematic powers or the oppression Olympics. This was about clout. And clout kills. Seems like right now, period. You know, I was thinking about this thing that we did on the DVD, right? Well, then you're not looking far enough. Apparently, you must not be looking at the internet because it's all over YouTube. It is damn for sure all over TikTok. It has been. I haven't seen it as much on Instagram, but I damn for sure have seen it on Facebook, and I damn for sure with the little viewership that I did see, have seen it on Twitch. You're obviously not looking, Zeke. You're not looking because it's been flooding my timeline, and especially those freaking stupid ass TikTok panels are all over with the lives of it. I'm doing it. They're doing lives all over the damn place doing it. It's ridiculous. And you can't say that nobody's justifying it when they're sitting here and they're doing celebrations. Have you not seen the shorts and the reels and the TikToks of people celebrating this man's death? And you tell me that nobody is justifying Kirk's murder? When you say as far as you can see, that means you're not even looking. Because I didn't have to look. It hit my timeline everywhere I was. What's going on, Hassan? I wish I didn't have to worry about it. It was all over my timelines. Really? So people saying that this is great because we don't need him there. It's great. We should have had this sooner. Oh my God, we can't wait. This is gonna be a message to all those others. That's not justifying that this is something that should happen. It's okay. That's not a justification. And what part of the English? What part of anywhere in that English language is not justifications? What about the guy that was already there when they were moving around talking about what? More to come? What are we saying? And I was having this conversation with people, and I was even having this thing with on the DBD last night when it came to OGNUS. We were talking about this whole thing when it came to whether words are not violence or so. You know, I've heard this saying quite a bit, and I really don't have too much I want to say about it because I think there's a lot of nuance when it comes to it. When they say words are violence, and to me, words can inspire violence. This is the kind of conversation we were actually having on the panel last night. Words can inspire violence, my personal opinion, but they are not violence in themselves. A punch is violence. Using a knife on someone is violence. Using a bullet on someone is violence. But words, like those other things, a knife and a gun, bullet, they are all tools. And tools can build or destroy depending on how the person is that's wielding it. Think about it. Same word, two different contexts, two different impacts. You say it to a stranger on the streets and it might cause a fight. But you say it jokingly to one of your best friends and both of you laugh. This would be considered proof right there that words can carry violence, that words don't carry violence by themselves. It carries the quote interpretation and the intention that decides the effect. But here's the problem too. Too many people walk around looking to be offended. And we see this all over the internet, and now it's already damn for sure in the streets everywhere you walk around. And if you're always on the hunt for offense, you'll find it in everything. In everything. And that means you're not strong, if you ask me. You are programmable. And I've already made streams about this, and I've already mentioned it before. If you are easily offended, you are easily manipulated. If you are easily offended, you are easily controlled. And there are people who just, regardless of where they go and what they do, will always try to be a contrarian. The first thing one should do is to know themselves, because the first thing one should be doing is to seek understanding. And it means even seeking understanding within yourself first before you start looking for it from everybody else. The problem with people, especially if you are easily offended and easily controlled, is your mindset. And that's dangerous. And I'm looking at people because I'm a person that just as well, like a lot of other people, believe in freedom of speech. Freedom of speech also doesn't mean freedom from consequences. But where do we find the line in those consequences? Because once you collapse speech and violence into the same category, you hand everyone the power to censor you. This is why we're already dealing with a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to cancel culture. You hand the algorithm the power to muzzle you, by the way. You hand society the power to shut you down and anything, any thought that they don't like. And now you're what? You're not being protected. You're being manipulated. Because in order to safeguard yourself, you will kowtow to whatever their feelings are. Let me just quickly summarize that. Words aren't violence. Words are weapons. And if you think everything is an attack, congratulations. You've just given everybody else the power to control you simply with vocabulary. So even in my thoughts of thinking about what we were talking about last night, no, words are not violence. They're choices. I think a lot of people hold other people to their experiences and their codes, as if everybody should know what they're thinking because of their experiences. Because here's the truth of the matter, and this is why I was also thinking about something that was said on the panel. You don't know someone else's situation or experiences. You don't know what's offensive to them. Anything could be offensive to them. But this is also a good reason why everybody should not only learn a little bit of restraint for themselves, but also critical thinking. You know, that thing that doesn't seem to be going around. Because if you had some critical thinking, you would understand that a lot of parallels come with a lot of choices. And choices that expose the speakers more than any of the actual, quote, wounds that affect the listener. What you have chose to say reveals your values. But what you chose to get offended by, that reveals your weaknesses. If your weakness is all you want to show, do not be surprised when people use it against you. It's just really that simple. And at this point, even when we look at the way how the internet has moved over the last decade, a little bit more than a decade, clout kills. We saw it in Las Vegas. The most recent thing was in Las Vegas. People have been all over in these internet streets, brandishing weapons and trying to pull up on each other or look for people, doxing, getting people swatted, all kind of stuff. Clout can kill. This isn't about right or wrong. This is also not about left or right. It's not even about race. It's not about trying to It is not about trying to turn tragedies into trophies. or stacking bodies in some kind of form of oppression Olympics. It's strictly about clout, period. A man is dead because another man believed that making a statement mattered more than letting words breathe. That's the reality that we live in now, right now, where the value of human life is measured against how viral a moment might be, where intention has become, or rather, attention has become the new morality, where impact has replaced meaning. I don't miss any of this at all. Charlie Kirk he wasn't assassinated because of his politics. Man was taken out because of clout, because of the clout that he had. And clout has become the new bloodlust that we have seen for quite some time. We already know that a lot of jealousy has already breeded contempt for a long time. But now it can affect almost anybody because we see it from the average everyday people that we wouldn't know unless they already had a following. To people who have some semblance of notoriety, to those who even political figures, like what happened to Trump. And this is slowly developing into the current culture that we are seeing. That for some reason, silence is not enough. You can't just disagree and walk away, apparently. You can't just turn it off or walk away and disagree and not follow that person no more. Now you've got to hate watch. You have to make yourself feel more offended. You have to somehow keep following them, even though no one ever asked you to. You just got to make a show of it. You got to brand it. You got to meme it. You got to crave it. It's your ego. Now you got to make it into a crime scene. It's like it just keeps updating. It keeps getting more grandiose. That is not justice. I'll say it again. That is desperation dressed up as rebellion. So look at the aftermath. Shooter got his moment, but the crowd kept it alive. That's where you see all social media flourish. People laughing, people cheering, people posting like death is just another episode in the entertainment feed. It's also because we have learned to dehumanize people. This is part of the sickness of social media. The shooter pulled the trigger, but the audience gave him a reason. And he also was looking for a reason because he was also not seen. And if you cannot see how dangerous this is, perhaps you're blind. Because the second that we, quote, normalize cheering for blood, the second we can clap for murder. Because it's going to fit our narrative. Because people were already doing it when it came to this whole Charlie Kirk thing. And I thought it was crazy. I thought that was something crazy. And I think that even what people have said, whether they say it privately or they've been bold ones who actually have said it publicly, we've heard people admit some ugly things, even to the point where they're running right now because their jobs are on the line. Debate is dying. Reflection is dying. The idea of growing mentally is dying. Clout kills, folks. And if we keep feeding this to the culture, if we keep demanding more of a shit show, more escalation, more blood for views, then it's not just going to be Charlie Kirk who paid the price. It's every single one of us who believes that a voice should be safer than a bullet. I don't want to make this too long, so I'm gonna end it like this. I'm gonna give my last thought on this one because I'm not gonna run this too long. And I'll just say it again: clout kills. And to be honest with you, if we're not careful, it's gonna keep killing. It's gonna keep killing because the culture is somehow gonna start demanding for it. Because for some reason we don't ramp down, we ramp up. It's going to escalate. And we already come to a point where we don't even want dialogue anymore. All we want is nothing but arguments and fuel and everything like that. We don't want explanations. We don't want camaraderie. We don't want solutions. We just want disagreements. We don't want to listen. We just want to speak. We want to see somebody shut down, silenced, or even erased. And let's not pretend that this is just politics for some of you guys out there. You guys know what I'm like. This is about human behavior collapsing. Because the moment you cheer for a bullet, just because you, quote, hated the man's words, you've already admitted to weakness. You've admitted you cannot handle a debate. You've admitted that you cannot handle someone else's personal opinions. You might have even admitted that you're just really fragile. Again, not justice. It's cowardice. I stand with the First Amendment. I always have. People should be free to speak, to challenge, to push back on boundaries, especially in a place like a college campus, because for some reason it's become such a political avenue. Rather, it was the place that you should have had your views tested. That's why people started going to college, learning about themselves and about the world before they actually went out to try to conquer it. And yes, free speech carries consequences. You can lose your job, you can lose friends, you can lose respect. That's the price of standing up for your convictions. But when the consequences become death, is that accountability? Or is that just carnage? Because that's not agree to disagree. That's agree and get killed, or disagree and get killed. And to me, it's a bit disgusting. Because words are supposed to sharpen us, to test us, even piss us off. They're supposed to make us stronger. But when the answer to words is just strictly murder, that's proof that we're not strong enough for freedom. The sickness isn't in the speaker. It isn't even in the shooter. It's in the audience that clapped for blood, like it was a form of entertainment. So let me leave it like this. Bullets might kill a man, but they can't kill the truth about us. And the truth is ugly. The truth is, in fact, ugly. A lot of us, we do not reflect. We react. We don't build. We wind up cheering for destruction. And Until we face that thing that is so right there in our face and admit what it is, we keep writing eulogies for people who only have microphones. Now you have other people that can't even travel to have debates because they have to wonder if they're going to have themselves taken off the chessboard as well. I'll say it again, folks, if you're not paying attention, clout can kill. Clout can kill. And at this point, until we can find a way to start revolutionizing it in a way to steal, to create some steel around what debate is, it will die. And if we do not change, the next casualty won't just be another speaker. It'll be whatever humanity that we've got left. If you've been watching this so far, you're going to do whatever you want, but don't just dip out just yet. I don't want your hot takes. I don't want your copy paste narratives. I don't want your reflection. What I want is your actual true thoughts. And I would like you to do that to do that in the comment section. And especially if you are catching this in the replay later. My question is, what does free speech mean in a world where words can get you killed? What does free speech look like? Or rather, what does free speech mean in a world where words can get you killed? This conversation isn't about you looking for your clout. It's not about anything going trending, but it's about whether we as a culture can still handle disagreements without demanding destruction. So you tell me what you think, but make it thoughtful. Let's see who's actually thinking and not just reacting. And for everybody posting, their views, let's end it like this. Don't give me your whataboutisms. Don't give me your victimhood spins. I want some answers from each of you after I wrap this up. Can you handle free speech without violence? Or are we officially in an era where we are all in agreement now for disagree and die? Is that going to be our new normal? Because that is the real question. Forget the goalpost moving. Forget the clout. If you can't answer that directly, then you've already proven the point. And the point is this: that debate is dead. And guess what? Clout killed it. I will see you guys on the next one. It's a damn shame, people. We need to do better.